welcome back to Onyx Pages. I'm Jerry, and welcome to the Kwanzaa Reflect-A-Thon. The Kwanzaa Reflect-A-Thon is a booktube event that's in its third year right now, and it's an opportunity for booktube folks, for bookstagrammers, for bookish bloggers, for creators in our communities to reflect on our reading from the last year using the 7 principles of Kwanzaa as a framework. For those of you who are unaware, Kwanzaa is a celebration. It's an African-American celebration. It's not religious. It doesn't necessarily need to be spiritual, but it's one that really focuses on the experiences of African-descended people. And I really like practicing Kwanzaa because around this time of year, we can really be encouraged to practice traditions that aren't necessarily ours. And so for me, Kwanzaa is a really great way to think about the turning of the year and think about the holiday season in a way that centers Black folks. I have invited a number of diverse content creators to reflect along with me, and they will be posting their videos across the 7 days as well. And I would also like to invite you to participate in the Kwanzaa Reflect-A-Thon by uploading your own bookish content using the 7 principles. I think the easiest way to do this is by associating one book with each of the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. So if you decide to participate, please put a link to whatever your content is in the comment section. I will be selecting one person to win a prize, and the prize is going to be a stack of books by Octavia Butler and by Nalo Hopkinson. I will choose one randomly. So if you'd like to be entered into the draw, then make sure that the link to your content is in the comment area and that it's there by January 1st, and then I will do a draw very early in the new year. So without further ado, let's get into the 7 principles of Kwanzaa and the books that I've associated with each principle. So the first principle is Umoja. Umoja stands for unity, and the prompt is choose a book that centered the upliftment of African-descended folks. And for that, I have chosen Lagoon by Nnedi Okorafor. I buddy read Lagoon with a friend of mine earlier this year, and I really found the story quite interesting. Lagoon is set in a future Nigeria and Lagos in particular, and there is an interesting event that happens one day, and 3 people are impacted by this event. It is a supernatural event. It impacts these 3 people in very different ways, and they come together to help the people of Lagos figure out how they are going to deal with aliens. So this was a really interesting story, not only because it was set in Nigeria, and I'm starting to read more stories set in Nigeria, but because of the chaos caused by this supernatural event. It allowed Nnedi Okorafor to really focus on a lot of different social forces in Nigeria, in Lagos in particular, like politicians, like business people, like students, like the church, and see how they all interact when something very cataclysmic happens. So it got me thinking about unity because there were a number of different conflicts, one in particular between the church and the LGBT community, that really got me thinking about the importance of unity and the upliftment of African-descended folks. The second principle is Kujichagulia, and that is self-determination. So the prompt is choose a book with an African-descended LGBT character who inspired you because they were determined AF. And that was so easy for me. I chose Pet by Akwaeke Emeze. I was gifted a copy of Pet by Jocelyn from Yogi with the Book at Booknet Fest. So thank you very much, Jocelyn, for the sweetest gift ever. And I really loved this. So Akwaeke Emeze they have written, I think, 2 books now. They've got one coming out next year. Their first was Freshwater, which was absolutely stunning, and Pet was wonderful as well. Pet centers the main character, Jam. Jam is a LGBTQ, I'll let you have to read it to sort of figure out which letter applies, teenager who lives in a world after monsters were banished. So she lives in the aftermath of this banishment of the monsters, this eradication of monsters, or so she is led to believe. And she spends the whole story figuring out why a magical creature has come into her home through a portal made by one of her mother's paintings. why this monster is here, what it's here to do, and as she goes forward in this quest, she finds herself having to make some really important decisions about her place in the world and what kind of world she wants to live in, and whether or not she wants to take part in creating an important change. This book faces off Jam and her friend Redemption against adults and against mainstream culture, and she was self-determined AF. The third prompt, so the third principle is Ujima, collective work and responsibility, and the prompt is a book in which a diverse group of characters worked together toward a goal. And that is House of Whispers. And the first time I recorded this video, because it's Christmas and there have been some interruptions, the first time I recorded this, I found it really hard to explain why I chose House of Whispers. So I'm gonna try again. Walk with me. Okay, so House of Whispers, so this is volume 1, The Power Divided, and this volume contains several issues written by Nalo Hopkinson, who you know is my favorite author, Neil Gaiman, Dan Waters, Simon Spurrier, and Kat Howard. The art is by Dominique Stanton. The colors are by John Roche and Matt Lopez, and letters by and World Design. Oh, there are other artists: Aneke, Bilquis Evely, Tom Fowler, Max Fiumara, and Sebastian Fiumara. I'm trying to really honor all of the people who come together to make graphic novels and comics. It's not just the writers. So basically what has happened here is there are at least two worlds. There's the main world, which is sort of humanity, where we all live, and then there's a world of the gods, and there's a relationship between these worlds. There are certain humans who are devotees of the goddess, and something has happened to sort of mess up that relationship. And the goddess can only really survive if she's got devotees who give her energy. But because this rift has been created, she can't contact them. They're kind of lost at sea, and it's very, very chaotic. And really what I like about this is because this story takes us into the interplay between worlds. So there's a lot of images where the characters are in between spaces, like they're transitioning from one world to another. And I just found that really, really interesting. And it reminded me of the importance of collective work and responsibility and working together. I'm not quite finished this, but I'm really enjoying the issues that I've read so far. The fourth principle is Ujamaa, Cooperative Economics. And the prompt is a book that got you thinking about sharing economic resources. And that one was really easy as well. And that was War Girls by Tochi Onyebuchi, which I read as a buddy read with Brittany of Melanin Eclectic. And this tells the story of two sisters who grew up together in a Biafran camp, a camp of all girls who are rebels. And they get separated about a third away into the story, and this really gets us thinking about, number one, like sisterhood, but also what it means to have access to resources or not have access to resources, and what is done with those resources. So a lot of the resources in this story are used for war. So there are huge, like, mechanical beings that are fighters. They're like death machines. They can fly, they can swim, but as we get maybe 2/3 into the story, we end up seeing what happens to certain societies that have more resources than others. And in this society, the Biafrans don't have as many resources as Nigerians do, and there is tension as a result. So even though we don't really get a resolution around that tension, I think as a reader, we're encouraged to think about what it could look like if there was a resolution. And if there was a resolution, then there would need to be some sharing of economic resources. And this book also got me thinking about what happens and how much resources we spend on war, and how taxing not only financial and technological resources, but also spiritual and emotional ones. The next principle is Nia, which is purpose. And the prompt is, choose a book in which an African-descended character found or developed their purpose. That also was really easy, and I read The Deep by Rivers Solomon. Rivers first wrote An Unkindness of Ghosts, which was one of my favorite books of 2018, and I really enjoyed The Deep as well. The Deep tells a story of this mer person right here, a Wanjiru, and her name is Yetu. She's a historian. She holds the memories of all of her people. That's a painful burden for her to carry, and this novella takes us through her reckoning with that heavy burden and her making a decision about whether she's going to keep that burden, keep that history or not, and what the consequences of her choice will be. And she makes a lot of different choices throughout the book, and it really reminded me of a quest to really decide for yourself what your purpose is. A lot of us grow up and we're told, you know, you're good at this, you should do this, or this is what your path is, this is what your destiny is, and whatever. But sometimes it really is about owning your own purpose. And here Yetu does, and it was really powerful. The next principle is Kuumba, creativity, and the prompt is, choose a book in which an African-descended character demonstrated power through creativity. I've actually chosen a collection of short stories for this one. This is Two Moon Stories, and the collection, all the stories in here were written by Crystal A. Smith. I really love these beautiful, beautiful atmospheric short stories. And there is sort of a thread that runs through them, but there is something really beautiful here about the creative capacity of love. There's one story in particular. It's a love story between a girl and the moon. The moon is a character, the girl is a character, and they're in love. And I can't spoil it, but it is about the creative potential of love. I want to say so much more, but I won't. But this is such a beautiful collection. And then the final principle is Imani, which is faith, not necessarily religious faith. And the prompt is, choose a book that strengthened your faith. And for that, I've chosen a book that I actually haven't talked about this year, and it's called The Wonder of All Things, written by Jason Mott. This is a beautiful, delicate, atmospheric story about a girl who realizes that she has the potential to heal. And unfortunately for her, she recognizes that at the same time as the rest of her family does and the small town that she lives in. And of course, once word gets out that she has the ability to heal, all hell breaks loose. Everybody wants a piece of her, and she has to reckon with how she's going to deal with that. What is she going to do with this power? Where did it come from? Where is it going to go? What does she have a responsibility? Does she not? Right? And so there's a lot of tension in this story. It is beautifully paced. It's weird in some ways. The magic is really, really delicate. But why does this remind me about faith? It really has to do with the ending, and I can't tell you very much about that, or actually I won't tell you anything at all. But this book reminds me of how powerful it can be to just trust. Just trust. Sometimes it's just about trusting. Trusting whatever, a higher power, the universe, yourself, your community, your dreams, whatever it is. And she trusts, and it works out. So those are the 7 books that I chose, and I would, as I said, invite you to participate in the Kwanzaa Reflect-A-Thon by reflecting on the books that you read this year and seeing if any of them match up with the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. As my friends in the bookish community upload content, I will also put links to their content on my community tab, and hopefully through Twitter over the next 6 or 7 days. So I know it's a really super busy time. I really appreciate you spending some of your holiday time with me, and I encourage you to participate in the Kwanzaa Reflect-A-Thon. Have a wonderful holiday season. Happy Kwanzaa, Happy New Year, and I will see you when I announce the winner of the Kwanzaa Reflect-A-Thon round 3. Bye.